Today we're going to look at face measurements, and we're going to try to look at the proportions of the face. So whether you're sculpting it or drawing it, it's important to understand these proportions. I do want to say that these proportions are based on Greek measurements, classical Greek measurements. And so if you're not Greek and you're not European, the measurements may change. So these are basic measurements that you can kind of play with. So the first thing that I'd like to suggest is that you figure out how tall this sketch is going to be, or this drawing will be. And then I'd like for you to find a center line to keep things lined up. Now your head is a little flat on top, so make that fairly flat. And your chin is a little flat on the bottom, so make that kind of flat. Now, take a halfway measurement and then make a line. This first halfway measurement is the eyes. We often start with the eyes because they're psychologically important. Take another half measurement for the bottom of the nose. You can also measure with your pencil. I'm putting the point at the top of the line, sliding my fingers down until I find the point I want, and then when I come down here, I can double check my measurement. This looks like my measurement here is a little off, so I want to correct it. Because the eyes are so psychologically important, we tend to get their placement wrong. We make them bigger than they should be. Next, I'm going to take the measurement for the bottom of the nose, and then I'm going to take half of that for the bottom of the lips. So halfway down are the eyes, halfway down from that is the bottom of the nose, halfway down from that is the bottom of the lips. Now you can check this out on your own face by just putting your finger on top of your head and in the center of your eyes and measuring from the center of your eyes down to your chin. If you then take your finger and put it on the inside of your eye, where the tear ducts are, and then take it to the bottom of your nose, you can then measure from the bottom of your nose to your chin. If you touch the bottom of your nose and the bottom of your lip, and then go from the bottom of your lip to your chin, you will find out whether or not you have a long nose or a short nose, full lips or thin lips. If you vary from these measurements, that's what I meant by varying from a classical Greek face. We'll see more of that later. Now, if you were to put your fingers on either side of your head, where it goes back to your ears, and you were to change that measurement around, it would go from the top of your head to the bottom of your nose. Your face is 3/4 as wide as it is long. So if I take this measurement and turn it sideways and mark that, and then mark here, that is how wide your face will be. So now I'm going to just take a general feel here, and I'm going to just take a mark that goes down here and a mark that goes down here to kind of symbolize the top of your head. Don't make it into an egghead. You're not an egghead. You have a shape that looks like this. Now, as I come down here to the chin, many people make the mistake of thinking of the head as an egg with features just drawn on top of it. Your face doesn't really look like this. We want to think about your skull. What happens with your skull is right below the eyes you have your cheek. Your cheekbones are formed by your skull coming in here and going down to your teeth, right? So the top of your skull, if you'll very lightly draw that in, will be that you have your cheekbones here. It comes in, not too far, and then goes down to the top of your teeth, to your top teeth. Now, we're not doing this exactly correctly. We're just getting the idea. That means that this bottom part of your face is a jawbone. And your jawbone is, of course, separate. It attaches at the ears. So when you're drawing your face or thinking of proportions, I'd like for you to bring this line in just a bit, and this line in just a bit. This says this bone, the cranium, goes this way, Then I pick up my pencil and I come over here and I say, this is a jawbone. Okay, so we're going to do that just very, very lightly here so that we have an understanding that these proportions are formed, of course, by the skull. Now, eyes, I said, are psychologically important. Your face is approximately 5 eyes wide. However, we tend to over-exaggerate eyes. Manga characters are a good example of that. Not necessarily a great example, but it happens there. If I take an eye measurement and I come over here, you can check this on your own face, but I have one eye here, one eye measurement here, I have another eye measurement here, so there is one eye measurement between the eyes. Many times people are so busy focusing on the eyes that they don't look at the space between the eyes. That's actually pretty important to getting the eyes correct. Many times it's not something wrong with the eyes that you've drawn, but there's something wrong with the space around the eyes that you've drawn. So what I want you to do here is measure 1 eye, 2 eye, 3 eye, 4 eye, 5 eyes. Now, when you first get started, I would just suggest that you kind of divide this space, this halfway mark, into quarters, and then just make it a little smaller. A fifth is just a little smaller. Okay, so we're going to set the eyes in here. Now, when I say your nose, this is the bottom of your nose, you have a ball on your nose, a tip of your nose, and that will be above this line. In order to find out how wide the nose should be, I want you to drop a line from the center of from the edge of the eye straight down to the chin, as straight as you can make it. And this will be another measurement coming down here, as straight as you can make it. Now, because we look at the eye and it seems so psychologically important, eye measurements are very helpful to use. So if you were to measure one eye with your fingers on your face, and you were to put those fingers here, and you have one eye measurement here, then you would also have one eye measurement here, one eye measurement here, and one eye measurement here on the chin. If when you measure your own eyes with your fingers, you know, pinching it like that, not pinching it, but touching your eyes like that, if you take this measurement and then you move it to the center here, if this space is wider than this space, you have wide set eyes. If this space is narrower than one eye wide, you have close set eyes. Likewise, on the nose here, that if you take an eye measurement that you take and then you put your fingers on either side of your nostrils. If you have a skinny nose, it's less than one eye wide. If you have a broad nose, it's more than one eye wide. So a broad nose might be a little bit out here. If you have a lot of space here, you will have the same space here usually. So if you are a little more than one eye wide here on your nose, you will be a little more than one eye wide here. So you may have like skinny white features that have a really narrow nose, which would come in here. You may have black features that are a little fuller here. So this is just a generalized map that you can change around. So if this is the bottom of the nose, I'd like for you to consider doing this and doing this and just saying, okay, the nostrils and the nose will go somewhere in here. I understand that there's going to be a ball to the nose, a kind of a button to the nose that we'll work with later. Now, I said that this line right here is the bottom of your lips. And when you envision the skull, you might have seen where the top teeth end. I have this line here because this is generally where the fullness of the lips are. Now, if you've ever made lips and they look like they're pasted onto the face, or a Joker and the Batman smile that's just kind of carved into the face, it's because you're missing something important here. So first I'm going to show you this part, and this is one eye wide. If you have full lips, it's a little wider, okay? So I'm going to make just the top lip and the bottom lip. Now, let's leave this and come down here. You notice that I brought this line all the way down. Generally, you have a one eye measurement on the chin. So if you were to take an eye measurement and place your fingers on your chin, you would find out that it does this. If you took your fingers and did this and measured like that, you would also find that that's one eye wide. While we're on one eye wide ideas, if you want to know where the eyebrows are, take an eye measurement, go from the bottom of the eye to the top here, and so when I do this and I turn it this way, that is approximately where you're going to find the eyebrows. So I'll do this, I'll do this, I do this. Eyebrows are important not only for expression, but the eye socket is filled in here, and that will be important later. Okay, it looks like the lips are pursed a little bit, tight a little bit. So now draw a line down from the center of the eye, straight down, from the center of the eye, straight down. And you'll see that I'm kind of getting where the edges of the jaw are, that the jaw turns back here, and the jaw turns back here when I draw a line from the center of the eye, straight down. Well, you might be surprised in your drawing that the lips tend to go out that far, because look, the lips cover the teeth, and this is where the skull goes back. So after you get the fullness of the lips here, I'd like for you to draw a line here, and this is where the lips get skinny. Okay, and this is where the lips get skinny. Now the jaw is actually turning quite a bit here, and this is how the muscles of the mouth work. And many times you draw this line here on the mouth as one continuous thing. That would be like drawing this as one continuous line. It's not really like that. This is where the muscles start tightening on the sphincter of the mouth. Now, I'll just tell you one thing. The top lip is always a little darker than the bottom lip because light comes down and hits the bottom lip. So let's just darken that a little bit. You'll also notice that when you have a shadow underneath the mouth, that shadow will likely fit in that area. Okay? You can also darken this. Might get you started on seeing some shadows. Alright, now when I'm putting in the eye here and filling this in so that you get a sense of the actual eye, and here we'll get a sense of the actual eye. Now you can start playing around with, okay, here's an eyelid. Here's an eyelid. Now, before you get into details on the eyes, I would like for you to consider that this whole thing here is an eye socket. And so if you'll just kind of shadow that in, the eyes go into the face more than the underneath the lip goes into the face. This is actually the deepest place on the face where the eye sockets are. So let's just indicate the eye sockets and maybe a small shadow here so that you understand that that's going to be something separate. Now, I have all this forehead area, and we tend to not look at foreheads because we're so busy looking at eyes that we miss all that space up there. And guess what? The one eye measurement is often where that widow's peak will be. So if I take this here and I put here, what I'm saying is that when your hair, unless you're, follically challenged, you're losing hair. If you do something about like this, and then you start putting hair, whether it's male or female, I'll just kind of do a generic center part here. By the time you have hair coming down like this, or hair coming down like this, you're going to start to see that this starts looking a lot more naturalized, okay? So there is more space probably up there than you think there would be, okay? Now, we don't have ears. Conveniently, ears are often at the halfway mark of the eye, and if you come over here from the nose, they'll be about right here. So if I put an ear here and an ear here, you have something that's looking like that. She'll have earrings, okay? Now, ears can really move around. People can have ears that are very high, ears that are a little low. So this can be surprisingly variable depending on how the jaw is set in. So this is merely a guideline to find it. Now, I'm going to be talking about getting into the neck and how to attach the head to the body, but there is something very important for you to understand at this point. Many people don't know where to put the neck. Like maybe they'll put the neck here and it looks like a big, ball sitting on a cylinder. Actually, what holds the head onto the body are two muscles that start behind your jaw. And they come in very tightly and they come down to a point here and here at your clavicle, okay, at your collarbone, the bone that looks a little more like that, okay, here and here. And what you're actually having here is that this muscle is what turns the head. This muscle keeps the head attached to the body. So instead of seeing the neck as coming across here or here, what I'd like for you to do is consider that the neck comes in here and it comes in here like this. And this part of the what you think is the shoulder is actually not your shoulder. Your shoulder is out here with your arms. This is your rib cage up here. So if you touch yourself right here by the neck and you pat that area, you'll see that it's actually part of your rib cage. So this shape here goes up and around and out so that the clavicle or collarbone can come here, and then the arms get attached, okay? And we'll go into that later, but the arms attaching here will give you a much more naturalized form. So if this is pulled in by the sternomastoid muscle, and this is part of your rib cage, then this right here becomes the anatomy of the shoulder itself. And when you think about the figure that way, you'll see very quickly that it gets very naturalized. Of course, this gets to be shadowed, and this is pulled in even more. If you look in the mirror and you tighten your neck and clench your jaw, you will very quickly see the importance of this muscle. Now, we're looking at this from the front, but we also need to see it from the side. So let's look over here, and you can see I've got a little bit of some guidelines. Normally, we think of the face as perhaps being just an egg, and then you draw some eyes on it. And it doesn't look so good, does it? Because your features are not pasted onto an egg. If you were to make a small sculpture of the head, you might be surprised that you don't have an, let's see, if I were to draw an egg here and put it on a neck, and then I have the features over here, like this. Many times when you think of the face like this, you don't know what to do back here. Like, where do I put the hair? And how much hair do I put there? That's because if you look at a skull, the head doesn't look like an egg shape because of this cranium and jaw. Instead, take an egg and put it on its side. Now, what happens when I put the egg on its side? This is the cranium where your brain cavity is. And now I have enough room for a brain. This egg head has very little brain to it. So what happens here is I'll make the egg like this. Find the halfway part of this egg here to here. That is where approximately the ear will be and where the jaw will begin to drop down. Now, how far down does this jaw go? Well, conveniently, your head from here to here is about the same. Let me move my camera. There we go. Your head from top to bottom is about the same from front to back. It can be useful to try to measure your head, or to take your pencil and look at somebody else and measure, or even measure from a photograph. So if I take this measurement from side to side, and I turn it from top to here, I will get a measurement about right there. So the jaw will come from here to here, will be about the same as from here to here. Now, I said that the eyes were about halfway down. The eyes over here are about halfway down. So if I take this measurement at the top and this measurement here, this measurement here, and this measurement here, you'll see that it's the same. It's not a bad idea to do this on graph paper if that helps you, or you could measure things out with a ruler if you like, but we can eyeball it here. So from here to here and here to here, that's the eye measurement. Now I said from this point to this point, from this point to this point, the nose, the bottom of the nose was halfway down. So I'm going to take from here to here and go from here to here. From here to here and from here to here. From the side, the measurements are the same. My next measurement was from the bottom of the nose to the chin. I would have from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the lip is halfway down. So I'm going to take another measurement about halfway down. Okay, so I've got this measurement. Now I'm going to start putting in these features. You notice that the ear that I have here is still at the eye level and the nose level. Make sure you get an angle on that. It's not straight up and down, okay? So we'll do something about like that. Now, when I set the eyes have to be set in here. This is the jaw. So if I imagine again the skull coming in here and maybe coming in here, and what I'm imagining is that where the skull does this, I'm kind of imagining that. Now, we do study the skull when we're doing portraiture, but this is just mapping things out. So the skull would be proportionate to this, but let's just be very general here. In drawing, it can be helpful to think of this almost like a visor on a helmet. And by that I mean if you thought of a face shield on a helmet, it might go something like this. So I'm drawing something around like that to get this jaw shape here. Okay, so if I set the eyes in here, because it has to be set into the head, and I'm going to put the eye measurement here, say. Now, I see that I have the center of the eye is here. And I said if I drop a line down from the center of the eye, I'm going to get the mouth. The inside of the eye will give me the nose. So let me do this, and the inside of the eye, I'm going to drop that down so that I get to the edge of the chin. Inside eye, here, here, and here. Now, if I go from the center of the eye a little further back, I'm going to say that's the center of the eye. I'm going to go here to the mouth. Center of the eye to the edge of the mouth. Watch what happens when I start to fill this in. I know that this is going to be the bottom of the nose. I know that this, when I drop it down from the center of the eye down, center of the eye down, that's going to be my nostril. I know that the fullness of the lips will be here, but the lip itself will come here. So from the center of the eye down is the edge of the mouth. From the inside of the eye down is the fullness of the lips. So let's fill this in a bit. Oh, let me do one more thing. From here to here, here's my eyebrow, right? Up here, one eye measurement. So what's going to happen is I will come down here, bump out at the eyebrow, come in where the eye is. You want to leave this in a bit. I might even have it too far forward because you have to have enough room to set the eyes in. If I then come out here for the nose, I have the button of the nose, which is the bump on your nose there. It's actually where the cartilage comes in on the skull. If I then do that, and then I bring this down here and come in, then I will have room for the fullness of the lip and the lip coming in. You'll see here I can make the fullness of the lip and the lip coming in. in order to see it better, I'll make that top lip a little bit darker. Then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to hit this chin line. Now, if you were to lay a pencil from the tip of your nose to your chin, you would find out that your nose touches the pencil, the bottom lip will touch your pencil, and your chin will touch the pencil. So there might be differences in angles here, but that's a pretty useful angle to have. Alright, I'm going to come back in here for the jawline. Now, I said that this muscle here was very important. So what I want to do is take this muscle, it goes from behind your ear, you can feel it on your own body, and I'm going to take that muscle down so that when I attach the neck, I get a sense of how the neck will be going in. I do know that if I have an eye measurement, that the hair is about one eye measurement down. So I might come in here, have the hair on one side of the face, come in here, have the hair on the other side of the face, and then this gives me the idea that if I keep going, that the back of the head is generally a whole lot bigger than you thought it was. It goes back further. What happens here is that the neck will come in here and balance the head. So you may find, as you're going across this form, that if the head bulges here and then comes in here, you will start to see shadows in the hair that go back like that. Now, you know, it depends on the texture and quality of your hair, but you can start seeing that this right here now gives me plenty of time to, you know, add interesting things. Let's see, she's got a flower in her hair or something. Maybe she's put her hair up a little bit in a bun. Maybe there's a braid here to play with. But you can suddenly see all these possibilities of working with the hair and not feel like you're not able to put enough in there. You know where you're going. It's useful when you're looking at this to really not see this as one flat egg, as you can tell from my sketches. What's really happening here is that the eyes, the nose, and the mouth are on the front of your face, right? So the side of your face starts right here, and it's where that jaw goes back. The side of your face is right here. Now, just as I might see an egg shape here, having a front of the egg and the side of the egg, if I were to shade this in here and shade this in here, it would start looking more 3D. So when you start getting into developing this a little more, it's a really good idea to check and see if you have turned this form, this shape, back so that you have a frontal plane and a side plane. You will often see shadows kind of playing around this plane. It won't be straight, but you'll be able to see that there's kind of some shadow play going on there. Likewise, if this is the front of the face, I'll have the forehead, I'll have the eye, I'll have the bulge of the cheek, it will come in here, and this whole thing here will be shadowed. So while it looked very broad at first, when you break this down into another plane, you'll see that it makes it look more appropriate on that. So you might want to play around with here. Here's the ear right here. This goes back even further. This goes back even further. And it's a little easier to figure out, you know, where your shadows will go. So play around with this. See what you can do with it. You might want to play around with whether or not you can figure out 3/4. Let me draw this in a way that would make more sense. Sorry. So if I have this shape from the side, and this is a side view, and this shape right here is a frontal view, halfway, halfway, halfway. So I know that if I had, for instance, an eye here, a nose here, lips here, and you can see here I'm just playing, I'm being much looser than in my first study. If I have an eye here, and the side of the nose here, and the mouth here, let's see what happens if I put this one in. Here's my eye, here's my nose, here's the mouth. What happens if I do a 3/4 view? So I'm just going to cut this off halfway, the full face halfway. And what might happen here is that I might get an eye here. It's hard for me to see because it's out of my reach here. And then I might have a nose here, an eye here, part of a mouth here. Now, what looks a little bit like, oh, I'm seeing double here. Now let me clean it up so that I might have a face like this. I might have an eye coming across like this. I might have the nose coming across like this. I'll get a 3/4 eye here. I'll get the rest of the mouth here. And as I'm playing around with these proportions, I'm starting to see that I've got a kind of interesting 3/4 view. Okay, it's the side and half the other side. So when you're looking with measurements like this, they will look very mapped out. They'll look very geometric. These might look kind of rough and sketchy and like you're trying to find the proportions. It's very helpful when you look at a photograph if you're seeing, for instance, where the eyes are and you're able to follow the eyes just intuitively drawing, but you have a hard time with, say, finding how big to make the nose or how big to make the eyes. Sometimes you can just draw however you want, you know, just sketching in and playing with it. And when you look at the photograph, it can be very helpful to kind of just visually imagine this line here, or visually imagine this line here. Many times when people work, they don't like to work too diagrammatically, like it feels very stiff. So you can just work intuitively. But what is helpful about these measurements is if you mess up, let's say I'm making a nose that just doesn't seem to fit and it's feeling way too wide, I can check in the photograph, if I'm working from a photograph, and just draw a plumb line down here and a plumb line down here, and I can decide whether the nose is too wide or maybe the eyes are too far in, too close together. I might need to move the eyes out in this case. And so these lines, instead of being absolute, grid lines that you have to approach in your drawing, instead they can be really nice ways to just check what you're seeing. It's very useful if you're doing a portrait and you're either looking in the mirror at yourself or you're looking at your sitter, to take a moment and visualize whether or not they have wide set eyes, full lips, narrow lips, but to just take a moment and do these kinds of lines visually to see whether or not your sitter, or the thing you're doing a portrait of, fall within these Greek measurements. So while I want you to do drawings like this for a little bit, and then maybe look at photographs and draw these measurements on top of photographs, say from, printing out from your computer or from a magazine. If you draw these lines on top of the model's face, you'll see that often they have ideal faces and ideal measurements. But also just when you're sketching, use these lines not at first, but afterwards or as you go along to correct your drawings and make them more accurate. Whether or not you're drawing a face from the front, from the side, or 3/4, you will still be able to have halfway down, halfway down, halfway down, 3/4 wide. See how this is 3/4 wide, like that. So if you can think about drawing from the side as well as the front when you get started on these proportions, it will help you when you're trying to do more complex shapes like 3/4. So give this a try, and then I'll show you the next step.